go live. We are going live right now. Uh, so yes. Thank you. Everyone is coming to join us today. My name is Henry Sally, and we are just going to have a discussion, a post elections discussion on Ugandan elections. We're waiting for someone to come in. There's supposed to be more than just two panelists. Right. Whose echo is that? I hear something. Do you have two machines on, Mr. Mitala?
I've got a computer in front of me, but I don't really need it. Do
you have a computer and a cell phone?
No, naturally, kusimu na says computer slows down to connected on this system. It's just beside me.
Okay, so, but you're not watching on the PC, eh?
No, I'm not watching on the PC. I'm on the phone.
Yeah, just making sure. For some reason, Judith is still muted. Let me see if I can. Say something, Judith. Say something, Judith. Thank you so much, everyone who's joining us via Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. My name is Henry Sally, and we are here to have a discussion about Uganda's post-election state of the nation. I hope you are excited to be with us here. We are excited to see you, and we look forward to having an excellent conversation. We are still waiting for Dr. Mirembe to join us. As soon as he joins us, we shall proceed. We're also still doing some testing technology, technology, especially in regards to the Uganda's context, where social media is not accepted. It's going to be an interesting conversation. We are very delighted to see you guys. I hope you are excited to be here as well. Mr. Mittal, how is the UK?
It's really cold today. We've been expecting some snow. The weatherman promised us we're gonna get snow as usual. He gave us flakes.
I know how you always enjoy that small snow that comes in.
It's a childhood fascination for me. I think obviously, for those of us who were born on the other side of the world.
Of course, you should come to Canada.
I know you've told me. I think I would be honored to be your guest.
Yeah. You should.
Yeah, but I do get fascinated by the weather. Really, I was really looking forward. The weatherman told us this morning. Since last night, he's been telling us that we are expecting lots of snow. Especially, I believe other parts of the UK. They do get sufficient snow, but I am right in London, and obviously, if you factor into global warming, we're in a bit of a more hotter environment, so possibly that's why we don't get to experience as good snow as what people experience everywhere, which is a miss out for me. I miss it. But you gotta work with what you have.
You have to work with what you have, of course.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
But otherwise, I'm very fine.
That's great. Because I think I'm going to start this conversation. But before I start this conversation, because I am located in Toronto, I'm going to do what we call the land acknowledgement. Because this land that we are operating on is not our land. It's for the First Nations people. So we need to appreciate them. So with that in mind, we wish to acknowledge this land on which we operate. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. As settlers in Turtle Island, we directly benefited from colonization and genocide and indigenous peoples on this land. Today, This meeting place is still the home for many indigenous people from across the Turtle Island, and we are grateful for the opportunity to work on this land. All right, so that's the land acknowledgement. Dr. Joel Milembe is here as well. So it's an excitement. Yeah, so Judith, you're still unmuted. There you go. Hopefully I'm gonna be able to hear you soon. Okay. Dr. Joel Milembe, do you hear me? Dr. Joel, can you speak, please?
He's in Uganda, he's in Toronto as well.
He's in Uganda.
He's in Uganda.
Yes, in Uganda. So for everyone who has joined us on Facebook, we appreciate your presence here. We are still trying to fix some of our technologies so that we can have this discussion. We want it to be inclusive and equitable. So that's why we are trying to accommodate the technology access. As you all know, Uganda's government does not accept anyone to use social media right now. But of course, citizens have refused to consent to that directive, and they are doing whatever they can to engage with other people, other Ugandans, specifically the diaspora Ugandans, to discuss issues pertaining to the land, Uganda as a country. For now, it's myself, Henry Sully, speaking for Paramount Education, and my colleague, Julius Mitala, who is a panelist on this conversation, and who is going to be speaking on different issues. As we wait for our colleagues in Kampala, let me just give you a preamble of this conversation. So most of you already know that Uganda's elections just happened in the last couple of weeks. So Uganda's 2021 polls were among the most anticipated elections since 2006, acknowledging that the campaign was marred by violence, which killed thousands of people or hundreds of people. The BBC cited 5 important aspects to watch out about the crucial vote. Among them, President Museveni, the 76-year-old incumbent fighting to cling on to power to enable himself govern for 40 years. His biggest challenger, the Ghetto President, Honorable Robert S. Kyagulanyi, the generational gap between the incumbent and his challenger, the COVID-19 crackdown. Despite Uganda having registered about 40,000 infections to date, and Uganda's role within the region and beyond. Likewise, other notable international media houses have closely watched the just concluded Ugandan elections, indicating human rights abuses as the common theme that attracted their attention. Mm-hmm. From the Washington Post to the New York Times, BBC News, and CTV News, Americans and Canadians paid close attention to the elections in Uganda. Meanwhile, The Guardian, Reuters, France 24, and many more media houses kept Europeans and other parts of the world well covered. According to the Human Rights Watch website, 2 days before January 14th, 2021 elections, the Uganda Communications Commission ordered internet service providers to block access to social media. The next day, the government shut down internet access across the country for 5 days, and access to social media sites including Twitter and YouTube, remain restricted. This explains why two of our colleagues who are supposed to be joining us today are still struggling to log on. Nonetheless, my colleague, Mr. Julius, is here. And without any further ado, I am going to introduce him so that we can start this conversation in spite of our friends who are not here right now. So who is Julius?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, welcome, Judith. Yes, now we hear you.
Thank you.
So I assume that you have been hearing me, even though we haven't been hearing you. So I'm just going to continue. I'm just going to continue with the conversation until Joel joins us as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just about to introduce Mr. Mitala. Mr. Mitala holds an LLB and a diploma in mental health law and practice. He specializes in mental health law and mental capacity. His current work is right now the health and social legal manager, and he advises and helps with the implementation of mental health legislation with particular regard to risk and compliance across various health and social care providers. Please welcome Julius Mitala.
Thank you very much, Henry. The honor is mine to be here. Great pleasure.
Awesome. I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak more about yourself, but I'm going to introduce Judith as well. So among us, we have a very young, intelligent lady who also decided to join us this evening or this morning, wherever you are in the world, to have this discussion about the post-elections in Uganda. Nalukwago Judith is in her 5th year of dental surgery. So she's a dental student at Makerere University. She was the vice guild president for Makerere University. She also serves on the GRC School of Health and Sciences. She's an athlete who plays tennis on the Uganda national team as well as the Makerere University team. And she attended Mount St. Mary's Namagunga during her high school. You are welcome, Judith Nalukwago. We're very happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Mitala, why don't you go ahead and speak about yourself?
The pleasure is mine, Mr. Sari. As you said, a little bit of background about myself. I attended St. Kalemba Senior Secondary School in Nazigo together with you so many years ago. I did my O and A levels there. I had a very little stint at Makerere University Law School before I jumped ship and I ended up in the UK, where I completed my law studies. Presently, I'm the legal manager within the health and social care sector. Basically, I advise a couple of NHS Foundation trusts in regards to the implementation of the Mental Health Act and related legislation. My specialist area is mental health, deprivation of liberty, and mental capacity. I'm interested in politics and current affairs. I'm also a very active member across different forums. And I'm a Ugandan. I think that's what I should make that introduction perfectly. I'm a Ugandan. I've been living in the UK for the last 17 years. I keep very huge interest in whatever is happening back home, and I try to play my role within, within what I could possibly be able to do in those small circles. So I'm not sure whether I've done myself a good service in terms of the intro there, but I think without being fancy, that's the best I can put on, I can put on record in terms of who Julius Mitala is.
Right. I think you have made an understatement, which means you have too much humility. You have done so much more than you just mentioned, and we are very delighted to have you on this platform.
Thank you, Henry.
You're welcome. Judith, do you want to tell us about yourself? I know I already introduced you a little bit, but Tell us why you are interested in this conversation, who you are, why you are interested in this conversation, and I'll proceed and introduce Mr. Dr. Mirembe. Judith, do you hear me?
Thank you so much, Henry. My network was being funny. Thank you so much. Like he said, my name is Nalukwago Judith. I'm a fifth-year dental surgery student at Makerere University. I'm the former Vice Guild President, the recent past regime under Katerega Julius, and I'm also a GRC School of Health Sciences. And on top of that, I'm an athlete. Like he said, I play basketball. I used to play basketball, but now, as of now, I actively play tennis on Uganda national team and also on the university team. And even when I'm in the medical field, I'm most interested in sport and politics. Now, what made me get more interest in politics than I had before, because I attended Mount St. Mary's College in Namagunga for secondary school for 6 years, and as I was there, I was a head girl. But you know, when you're young, you don't understand the dynamics and the politics of the country. You're just maybe a leader, but when you grow, you learn to understand what is happening in your country. So what made me want to participate more in our politics is when I got a chance to travel outside the country on various occasions. At least I'm one person who travels out of the country every year. So especially in the sporting world, I've represented Uganda in World University Games 3 times, All Africa University Games 2 times. So I have gotten that exposure, even other leadership avenues when you leave alone sports. So when I see what is happening in other countries, and those countries do not have so much potential like we have, I feel so bad, and that is when I get to know that our systems are being run badly. They're not being run to help the people of the country. They're being run to help maybe a 1% population of the country. That is what made me get interested in politics. Not, of course, I cannot change everything, but at least for the field I have experience in sports. It is the politics that is making our sports this bad. So we have to remove politics in sport and build better systems to enable these children, because we are a young nation. If 78% are youth, if we invested in sport, do you know how much more we'd be earning right now if we put our investment in sports? So that's what made me love politics, and my politics for the betterment of the country. Yes, that is what I could say briefly about myself. Thank you.
Politics for the betterment of the country. Julius, aren't you impressed?
I'm still trying to put the picture together to digest the information that Judith has given us. Well done, and of course, it's very nice to have lots of us interested in the sorts of things that are taking place within our motherland, as we try to do a bit of a comparative kind of assessment of what we could be and what we've actually become. So Judith, it's really very nice. I'm very pleased to be interacting with you on this platform here today. And I hope we can learn from each other, we can share experiences, and we can add, a little bit of the smallest contribution we can add into making sure that, we take Uganda forward from where it is at the moment.
Of course.
Thank you.
100%. I agree with you, Mr. Julius Mitela. I think you have you have put that, you have expressed yourself very well. I think that was amazing. The way you expressed everything was really good. I think it's very important to understand that learning is a symbiotic relationship. You learn from me, I learn from you. We all learn from each other, because no one is really perfect. But people have to accept that sometimes you cannot always be the winner. Sometimes you lose and others win. Sometimes you win, and until we get to the level of comfort that it's not always me who has to win.
I think, and I'm sorry to interrupt you here. I just want to interject and add on to what build the point that you are building. Obviously, Judith is a sportswoman. She will understand that in the sports world, nobody is is big as an individual. Nobody is bigger than the game, if I should put it that way.
Exactly.
So when you're playing in a team, even if you are the top scorer, you've got a team of people behind you who help you to get the ball to you so you can be able to put it in the net. That's what builds you into a stronger personality, into a stronger sports personality. In other areas, professionally, in all the other areas that we do, I mean, many of you have come across a term which is called multidisciplinary teams. Whether it's in education, whether it's in legal, whether it's in the medical world, wherever it is, the term multidisciplinary. All it means is that people of different talent, people of different experiences, they come together and they all contribute towards a common objective. So I think at the moment what we have, the kind of politics that we have is really dangerous. I mean, it doesn't take into account the concept of multidisciplinary kind of playership, whereby we've got some particular individual who's kind of suffocated out everybody else. It's me or it's nothing. And I think that kind of mentality for me, it puts me off so badly. We shall be able to go into, a little bit of better analysis than that as we progress into the discussion. But I just wanted to make that small interjection to build the point that you were making, Mr. Sadi.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. I think you have stated it so well. And I think that's why it's very important for us to have these discussions. Because until we start speaking to each other and trying to understand each other, we are going to continue asking questions and not having appropriate answers for them because we are not willing to engage in conversations. And I think that it's unfortunate that the social media has been cut off in Uganda. As Judith mentioned, Uganda is one of the youngest countries in the world. I think only second to Niger. So what that means is that majority of the people in Uganda now are youth. That means that's their country. The stakes are very high for them. They are higher than most people who are above 35 years, 40 years, and the youth are so many that they need to take the stakes of their nation in their hands, of the nation in their own hands, to ensure that we do not make more mistakes, and that we are thinking about the future generations, as you can imagine. So Judith, I know you've been participating a lot in the recent elections campaigns as a leader in Uganda's leading university. Of course, you're probably mobilizing and organizing to ensure that the youth get to some of these responsibilities. What are some of the challenges you encountered in mobilizing for votes for your candidates? And what are your thoughts? What do you think we need to do to have a smoother political campaign operations in Uganda?
And before Judith answers that question, I just wanted to put in something here, which might help us to go into the issues that we were to go into, because the theme of this discussion, Mr. Henry, forgive me, it's the state of the nation.
Exactly.
The state of the nation. So on addition to the question to what Judith is going to develop, I just want to ask a very quick kind of a tester, so that we can be able to have this interaction, appropriately. So when we say the state of the nation, as at this present, I mean, look, Judith is in Kampala now. I'm in London. You are in Toronto.
And Dr. Mirembe is also in Kampala.
And Dr. Mirembe is in Kampala as well. So
he's trying to work on, but it's not working yet. He
will come on. I'm pretty sure he will come on. We understand the internet is down. In Myanmar the internet is down. In Russia the internet is down. In all those places where you have the strongman kind of politics, the internet is being shut off in order to suffocate the voice of the common person from being able to express what they feel about the injustices that are going in their own countries. But I don't want to come off topic. The question, the figure that I wanted to put in place before Judith gets to answer the question you've asked her, when we look at the state of Uganda as it is today, it might be in 2 or 3 words. How would you summarize the state of the nation? Because I've made my feeler here, but I want to hear from you guys, because in context, that's really the broad ideas, the theme that we are debating.
Yes.
What is the state of the nation? I'll give myself a start. The state is gripped in fear at the moment. There is anxiety. It's a grim picture. It's gloom, if I should put it that way. We have got an angry president, a president who is very, very angry, and we don't understand why he is angry.
He's scared.
It's unbelievable that you go and win a trophy and you don't celebrate the trophy, and instead all we are seeing is an angry man. We are seeing an angry nation. We are seeing an angry president. For me, that's the description I can see at the moment. But I'm not going to eat into Judith's time. I just wanted to bring that into the context so that we can be able to, so that people can be able to build onto that. The state of the nation, as we stand today, what do we see? That's what I see. What do you see, my friends?
All right.
Actually,
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, what I wanted to say, I wanted to say that there's a lot of anxiety in the country right now. One, we don't know where we are leading, and we're even uncertain of where we've come from. There's so much anxiety. We don't know what is next in all sectors of the country, health, education. We are not sure of where we are leading or of where we are going. So we are just living in disbelief, and most things are out of hand right now in the country, in that, like I told you, we have no direction. And then also, most importantly, you asked me a question about me as a student leader or as a leader. What did we do and what did we fail? I was a leader both at university level, and also I was given an appointment to be a mobilizer in Kawempe for the youth when youth elections came about, because we pushed so hard for the youth elections. Before even NUP managed to take on the youth elections, were the people who knew the importance. Actually, if you look at the past elections, the opposition has not been engaging in youth elections. Actually, this was the first time the opposition engaged in youth elections, and it's NUP that tried to make the youth aware that, oh, there are these elections that they didn't know about. Most cases, NRM was just coming, they handpick people, they write on lists and they take. In fact, when we want to sensitize the youth in the different areas, they're like, have you ever been to their NRM? As in, those are NRM things.
Right.
Then we had to tell them, no, everyone is allowed to participate, just that you didn't know about them. So first of all is it showed you that even as the opposition were not well organized, because we had to push NUP to start mobilizing for youth elections like 2 weeks to the elections. So if we had been better organized, I'm sure we would have taken a bigger chunk of the youth elections than we did. Even with the state interferences, we managed to do our best. Then next is, you see, youth elections are a bit funny, in that at the village level, it starts like a normal election as a popular vote. But when it goes higher, it becomes a college electoral vote. So that electoral vote, the ruling government has managed to manipulate it in terms of money. So if you do not have money, that is where the problem comes in. So at village level, for example, in Kampala, we won Kampala by like 90%, because for me, I was mobilizing in Kawempe. But when it came to parish level, where it turns into a college electoral vote, things totally changed, because these youth, they needed to mobilize these others who went through. They needed some little resources here and there, which we as a party could not manage to mobilize. Because even me, a leader, I failed to get some finances to keep moving around the whole district. Right. So I had to get into my own pocket as a person. So also the resources became a problem. Then at Makerere University, we started the NUP students chapter, so that we could groom students to aspire for these big positions, for example, guild president, GRCs, and different positions at halls of residence.
Right.
But of course, yeah, the university, because the university administration right now is basically under the state, so they also put a lot of pressure on you. So those are the challenges we got. Mostly it was the government interference and also the preparations. We were not very well prepared because at least the youth elections, I expected NUP would have gotten the bigger vote
Yeah.
on it, but because we had not prepared well, we also, most people actually in the chapter didn't know about the youth elections. We are the ones who reminded them. Even me as a person, I was aspiring as a leader in the youth elections as LC5 youth councillor, but I had reasons that made me withdraw, not because I was a bad candidate, but resources, and the state was determined to do everything possible. So I withdrew like 2 weeks to voting, where I could not go anymore. So
Oh,
resources is important.
that's so unfortunate.
Yes, so it was very unfortunate, but I'm someone who understands. I know where I'm leading, and that withdrawal was unfortunate, but I managed to think through it and understand what is happening, and I believed, and it didn't hurt me so much. So one is we as candidates, not the party alone, but also the party, we have to plan 5 years ahead, mobilize resources so that candidates go into races when they know they have resources. Because as you can see, some of our MPs, the MPs that didn't go through in the central, it's because they withdrew from the races thinking that I will not be able to raise the money to make me sail through the electoral period. So they withdrew in the race. We would be even having more MPs. But so the candidates, we need to groom people and make them raise enough resources in this period, because 5 years are very short. It's going to be 2026 tomorrow. So,
I know. So
yeah,
it's very interesting that you're already talking about 2026. When we are still navigating the process. First of all,
yes. Mm,
there's two things that I want to note in your conversation, which was
mm,
very insightful. Number one, you have admitted that the organization was lacking. It could have been
yes.
much better. So
Mm,
that's number one. But number two, you also pointed out that currently the country is in a state of anxiety. Something that Mr. Nicola talked about. Fear. There's fear brought upon or instigated by an angry man who doesn't know why people are just tired of him. So those are two things. On the other hand, you're also talking about 2026, which I think it's the conversation that he wants us to be having now. And get away from the notion of interrogating what happened, why it happened, and where we must go from here and how.
Dr. Mirembe seems to have joined us, Henry.
Right. So, Dr. Mirembe, do you hear me? Dr. Mirembe, do you have audio? Do you have audio? If you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, please comment, send your comments, send your questions if you want. Let us have this discussion. This is examining the state of the nation post-elections, the state of the nation. What is the state of Uganda? What did we do? Why did we do it? And where are we going from here? These are some of the conversations that we are having here today.
Hello.
That we are having here today. Dr. Mirembe, do you hear me?
Banange Jemuri.
Loud and clear, loud and clear, loud and clear.
All right, all
right. Are you
ready? Do you hear us? But you are live now and clear. But you are loud, you are live, you are loud and clear now, Dr. Mirembe. Tukuulira bulungi.
Obange nakozesa sign language.
Okay.
Right. Dr. Mirembe, we are building.
All right. Here's the thing. Before you start, Mr. Mitara, Dr. Mirembe, can you introduce yourself and tell us why you are here today? Okay.
Right.
I can now start to hear something.
All right. Yes, I think before you start, Mr.
Yes, please.
Okay. Ani ali ku Facebook. Kireka waliwo ali ku Facebook. Introduce yourself, Mr. Dr. Mirembe.
Hello.
Dr. Mirembe, yeah, please kindly introduce yourself.
Hello.
Hello, do you hear us? Mic check. All right, Mr. Mitala, why don't you proceed with your thoughts?
You see, these are some of the things that just really frustrating.
Introduce yourself, Mr. Dr. Mirembe.
I hope you guys can hear me. My name, because me, I'm not.
Who is watching
I'm not
Facebook?
Joel, I'm a medical doctor.
Mic check.
Yes, now I.
Right.
Yes. Actually,
Dr. Mirembe, do you hear me?
my TV is off actually.
Okay, so introduce yourself, Dr. Mirembe. Do you hear us?
Think something. What is this? What is disturbing my network? It's so yeah, you very well.
Do you hear us?
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Mirembe, can you speak?
Yes. Hello.
Yes. Do you hear us? All right, so for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, we are having technical problems, but we are trying to resolve them as we have this conversation. Again, we thank you for following. We thank you for joining us here today. If you do have any questions, please go ahead and comment, or you can call WhatsApp +1 416 518 2714. And I will ask some of the panelists your question. If you do want to ask the question directly, please call on WhatsApp, or you can send a voice note. Mr. Mirembe, can you speak? We see you, but I think your video is frozen. Your video is frozen, so we can't really hear you. All right, Mr. Julius, why don't you proceed with your submission?
Yeah, I was just going to continue from where Judith has stopped from about the challenges that they faced in the recently concluded elections, and I think I would like again to emphasize that it's really it's very, very interesting to see that young people are getting involved in these processes. We're getting a very bad echo from Dr. Dr. I don't know what we can do about that. But so talking about the challenges, I wasn't in that election, and I appreciate that things might have been difficult for those who participated in the elections directly. But there is something that can be learned from that. And for me, one of the lessons that I'm taking away from all that is that, we have seen a situation where lots of candidates who were standing for the first time were successful against some established players. And that is something really to be commendable. It's something that it's a kind of a telltale signs of what lies ahead, which means that if people are ready to show face and come and put their heads on the table and present what they are capable of doing, or what they think they can do, in what ways they think they can be an alternative to the present systems, it's a very positive sign. I think we can build a lot on that. As you saw, there's one particular area which has caused a lot of anxiety from the establishment at the moment, because obviously within the central region, I think it is safe to say that the old system was wiped out. We almost have new entrants from across all areas, from the local elections, from the MPs. It's quite a massive change. And I think for me, what I get from that, and this is a discussion I've had with somebody else, I said that based on that, what we see is that the appetite for change is really there.
Right.
The appetite for change is there. People are really willing to take a gamble. People are saying, we are willing to take the step ahead.
Right.
Notwithstanding, the challenges and the frustrations and the intimidation and all the sorts of things that we've seen during the course of the election. There is some positive signs there. And also the other beautiful pointer that I take away from that is the fact that, it's good to have a change of leadership, because for me, I've always maintained that no two people have got the same mode of operation. Your operation, Henry, may not be my operation. Your operation, Judith, will not be my operation. Your operation, Dr. Midenbe, will not be my operation.
Right.
So the change of direction is a good thing, and it's nice that because it kind of it kind of grows the spirit of what we are looking for. That it should be okay to lose an election and move on to something else, and then a new set of players come in. That is a culture we really have to promote. It's a culture we need to be aspiring to inculcate into ourselves, into our nation, and get away with this concept of people who want to die in office. Somebody gets into an office, maybe it's LC1 chairman or at whatever level, and the office becomes their home.
Right.
They don't think of anything after that. And I think that's where the problem comes, because when it comes to a time when people really realize that there is a possibility they might lose access to that office, they start to create a problem, which is what we are seeing at the very top of the establishment. Because obviously, as many of you will remember, these are public statements and they are on record. Mr. Museveni told everybody so many years ago that the problem of Africa is presidents who come into leadership and they refuse to go. 36 years down the road, we are still having the same problem. So what can explain that lack of movement? Obviously, for him, he changes goal posts every now and again. He's tried to tie it onto being democratically elected, but that is contestable. Obviously, you have to look at the recently concluded elections and ask yourself a question: if you genuinely can stand in front of, a proper thinking adult person and ask them whether that was an election and see whether you can get a straight answer from them.
Right.
There's lots of things that are really worrisome. I mean, for somebody like me who lives abroad, I've so many times been used to people asking me about Idi Amin. And sometimes it was actually frustrating, because every time you go, people ask you, who are you? You tell them who you are. And then next thing they ask you, where are you from? So for somebody who was born and bred here, for them it's easy. They can say, I'm from Brighton, I'm from Essex, I'm from the West Midlands, I'm from wherever, But then for you have to take into account of the secondary question, which is always where are you from? As in, where are you from? Then you say, I'm from Uganda, and then the next question, the next observation that comes from the person is Idi Amin.
How is Idi Amin?
We've come away from Idi Amin, but not in so good a context. I'll give you an example. I've got my next door neighbor. He's an Irish old man. He's about 70 or 71. He's a very old friend of mine. Trained from Oxford. He's very interested in current affairs and world politics. And every morning, I see him and we chat for about 5 or so minutes, and we talk about a whole range of issues.
Right.
In the last several weeks, the question that has always been on his mind is that, how is Uganda politics? Because he's watching it, he's following it on television, on the internet, on the news. He's following it, and he's been asking me lots of questions about how the election is going. But then I think the most saddest day that I think I can recall in the recent past is the day one of the presidential candidates was locked up immediately after the elections and put under, unlawful detention, house arrest. And this made global news. And then the following morning, when I see the guy, he was the first one to inform me that I see the guy was the candidate was arrested. He's in his under house arrest. Now, obviously, things like that are very difficult to defend. They are very difficult to defend, and they create a very bad image of us as Ugandans. They
do. People tend to judge us to measure who we are by looking at the bigger picture of our former homelands.
Absolutely. The other day, I had a question from a Tanzanian friend of mine, and he's a guy called Andrew. He rang me directly, and he was asking me, what is happening with you guys? What's the problem with you guys? How do you respond to questions of such a kind?
You can't.
I think we can do better, really. We can do better, really. And I think we really need to start to think about the concept that, you don't have to die in office to be somebody.
Yeah.
You really don't have to die in office to be somebody.
I wonder what Judith thinks. Judith, what are your thoughts on this? Because we are talking all about this, but we are speaking from a colonizer's point of view, because we are the West now. We are Ugandans, but we are in the West. We live in the West. So our perspective, even though we think that we are so entrenched into the Ugandan system, we are not really well versed with the Ugandan system. We are the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, as a leader who is on the ground and actively engaged in these processes? What are your thoughts on that?
One thing for sure is President Museveni knows no one likes him in Uganda. He knows. All dictators know that people don't like them. So they have to impose themselves. He knows clearly that people didn't vote for him. It's not that he's living in delusion. He knows that people don't like him. They didn't vote for him. And he's not trying to prove a point that he's a better leader by staying into power. He has his other ambitions why he's staying into power. And those ambitions is not even about leadership. It's about his family. That is basically it. So we should begin looking at President Museveni in a selfish view. Like for him, it's about him and his family. So how do we get rid of those people should be our question. Because when I was having a discussion with some people, not one group of people, just very many, they keep asking me, but you people who want to get rid of Museveni, the opposition, every other time you go into an election and you promise us we are going to protect your votes, we are going to do this, we are going to do everything possible. But we all know we come to vote when we know Museveni is going to rig. We know it. But what we want is, what are you going to do after Museveni has rigged our vote? That is what we want from opposition. We don't want to hear it, but we want to see it happen. And that is what we failed to do, we as the opposition, because it's the same script. Every other time they will use the EC to rig the elections. Every other time they will arrest the leader of opposition at that time, the most prominent opposition candidate. They will have to go under house arrest for a week. Every other time they will have to switch off the internet. So what have we thought out of that situation with the opposition? That's why people keep asking, that it is the same script. Then after all that, we go to court. And then, of course, out of all the judges, Museveni will get 4 out of 7, and he will still be the winner. So they ask us, what is the next? Like, what do you have next except going to court, except being arrested, except this time round, kidnaps are really so many. People are living in anxiety. There's a lot of people are grieving, in that there is so much anger, because you can even see what shows that people are so angry. When you look at these TV interviews where they bring people, the front lines, and they allow people to take in calls on the TV, people are so abusive. Like, they use so much abusive language. It's not because they want to abuse, just because people know that is the only option left for them. Because they know even if we dialogue, we cannot get what's right for us. So They're just left insulting and abusing. That is, it shows the anger that people are having in their heart. So I think it takes us to organize ourselves, we as the opposition, we shall have to organize, because even now, me as I can see, the opposition is still divided. People want to show Marit that this is a leading opposition political party. We didn't come to be elected to be in opposition. We came to take power. So
Right.
I don't know why people are fighting to be in opposition. Now this is our party, this one is and that is leading in opposition. That is not our point. So our point is to remove Museveni. So the discussion in our different groupings, whether a political party or whether you're not in a political party, for as long as you're oppressed, because our cry is for the oppressed, not even political
Right.
parties, but us the oppressed. How do we organize ourselves with the oppressed to remove our oppressors and we take charge of our country? That should be our question, and it should be when we are organizing, we should put that at the back of our mind.
But you see, one of the other things that must be taken into account is the idea that, you know, repression, the blunt repression has never worked to unite a nation. There is nowhere where a state being you know, repressive against its citizens has produced anything that is not counterproductive. So strictly speaking, I think the route that the establishment has taken is just is plain wrong, and is bound to fail. I mean, if you look at there are examples we can look to, and these are things that have just happened in the last few days, in the last week or so. If you look in India at the moment, there is a movement of farmers that are fighting against you know, bad policies by their government, you know, and they have stood up. They have stood up strongly against the government, in spite the same tactics that are being used against them as we see that are used in on our own people. But the Indian people have taken a stand and they are saying, no, we're not going to accept this. The most recent one, which I think happened in the last 2 days, is in Myanmar, you know.
Yes.
This Southeast Asian country, I think. You see what the people there have done, you know, and I think it cuts across all areas, from the elites, from the locals, from the underprivileged, the teachers, the doctors, everybody across the country. They have said, no, we are not having a military government over our heads. And they are standing up and they are demanding, you know. And despite the attempt of the military government over there, with the one which has taken over the elected government, despite their attempts to try to switch off the internet, the movement has not gone away, you know. So maybe we could borrow something of the kind. And I think all it takes, you know, when people ask the questions, what next? And then you hear about Plan B, because obviously what the establishment is trying to paint, they are trying to paint a picture that everybody who talks about an alternative kind of system is an enemy of the state, which is incorrect, you know. I mean, for instance, the people in opposition, there are so many people in the opposite side of government who have got very beautiful ideas that can take us forward. Very good ideas. I mean, why can't we absorb those ideas into?
Also, I think what we need to understand is that it's very important for the people who are supposedly defending the constitution to understand that every time they deviate from their mandate to protect the constitution, we are legitimately empowered to challenge them in defense of the constitution. So if there's any kind of revolution that arises from the establishment raping the constitution, we are justly empowered to fight back.
That is the accountability that people are asking for. When people are asking for accountability, they are not saying that they are going to go and take up arms and fight the sitting government. Nobody has that is the mentality actually with the people who, because they know how they came, you know. So you know, I think this is the way I can put it. When you see a very rich man on a village, you know, and people begin to circulate a rumor that he's a thief or he's a witch, and you see the big man beginning to panic, then you know there is maybe some substance in what the rumor is. Because to be honest, I'm baffled up to this point. I'm still disturbed. I'm trying to understand what has made Mr. President Museveni so angry. I just don't seem to understand it. Where is the anger coming from?
Right.
When you hear him speak, when you see him speak, you see a very angry man. And
Right.
I don't understand, where does this anger come from? I mean, he says people love him. If people love you, why do you react against them in a manner that you are reacting against them? What's the point to be proven? I just don't seem to understand. It's a very sharp contradiction there that I'm still kind of struggling to come to terms with. I just really don't understand. Because I mean maybe somebody can try to explain that. But, you know, again, Judith has raised an issue there about the abductions of.
Exactly. I was not to touch on that, but before you proceed, I just wonder if Dr. Mirembe can say a word, because I'm not sure if his network is working or not. Dr. Mirembe, do you hear us?
Yes. Of course, the internet. I've heard what the previous colleagues have been sharing, and it's
Right.
moving. You see, we are discussing a post-election. We are having a post-election topic, but like I said before, I didn't put in the reason.
We don't hear you. Right. So Dr. Mirembe seems to have dropped. But I don't know if Judith had the conversation that we had. I know she had also dropped off a little bit, which is understandable given the circumstances in Uganda. We want to send our sincere appreciation to everyone who's watching us. We want to encourage you to comment with a question, or you can call WhatsApp if you have any questions. Call me on WhatsApp +1 416 51727 5182714. Thank you so much. Also, I just want to let you know that this conversation is sponsored by Paramount Education, an education consultancy that takes care of international students, domestic students, as well as vice parents on where to invest their children's education. So, of course, Judith brought up the phenomenon that is going on right now, where people are being abducted. According to the Monitor, over was it 100? There's a lot of people that.
It's the Monitor of the 6th, yesterday's Monitor. It has got an article there about the abductions in the country.
Yes, I just don't want to get the number wrong, but there's a lot of people that have been abducted since the elections ended, and people are scared. Uganda is in a state of anxiety. Everyone is fearful just because of one person who potentially lost the election and now is doing whatever he must to retain power. We know that he just met the justices. We know that he just met the justices, some of whom will preside over the presidential petition. So there are questions within the community. People are asking themselves that who really are these judges, justices, going to excuse themselves from presiding over the case, or are they actually going to go ahead and preside over it? If they do preside over it, are they going to be fair and just, or are they going to be compromised? As there are speculations that the judiciary in Uganda is compromised, just as the legislature and the executive is, of course, in favor of the incumbent president. Mr. Museveni. Wow. Judith, what are your thoughts on that? Do you hear? Judith, an opportunity for you to
Yes.
say something. Yeah.
I think the justice system, just like all the other arms of government, is compromised because even before we reached this fine elections, you could see during the electoral process, many of the youth were being kidnapped. Some of them were being arrested. Actually, I can testify to one of the things that occurred when I was around. We went to the electoral commission. They had changed the declaration forms of a certain parish where I was supervising. So we went to the electoral commission to tell them, but you people, you changed the declaration forms. This is what you gave us, and now you are pinning up different things. So I had gone with a group of people, with even Julius inclusive, Katerega Julius, my guild
Yeah.
president. When
Right.
we were there, the RO called the police and they came and arrested everyone who had come except me. I narrowly survived because I don't know, I think because of the way I was wearing, they thought I was maybe some, because I was wearing kind of a suit. And so I think they ignored me and they arrested everyone around me. Then they took them to Chitalia prison. And the reason they took them to prison, apparently, they were saying, but they got these people with a gun, they beat up a policeman. And I'm like, when did that happen? I was there when they were arresting these people and they refused to give them any lawyer.
Right.
So those things were happening. It really happened in my face. I was seeing everything happening, and I'm like, wow, this is how far our country has reached. So I don't expect those judges to be fair. I expect, of course, they're going to rule in Museveni's favor. But of course, we're already there. There's nothing we can do. We can't do so much. We're already in the process. So we have to make sure there are certain things we have to do that maybe can make the judges to fear to rule in president's favor. You've seen very many cases happening in the world. We can make this a public interest case. Make sure we give it the visibility it deserves because that is how our campaign has run. Our campaign has run on social media mainly, but we've given it the visibility it deserved. So if we do it with also this case, we have to make sure we show the judges that we are more interested in our country than it has been before. So we have to show them whatever ruling they're going to take with all the evidence that is there, we are watching them. Rather than giving up and letting them be. We know that they would want at all costs to rule in the president's favor. But we have to also show them that we have not given up, despite the fact that we know what the president has fed you with. Because recently, was it yesterday, the president met the judges and they asked for some money to do certain things here and there. So, of course, most Ugandans don't expect much, but we shouldn't give up at this level. We've come too far to give up too soon. That is
So in
what
other,
I think.
so in other words, we have like I think the Honorable Kyagulanyi often says that we have to follow all the legal procedures necessary and
Mm.
available to ensure that we bring along the change that we deserve,
Mm.
which is amazing, which is good visibility. Most people have talked about the notion that the opposition has been so generous with their information to the regime, and that's why they have not succeeded so far in bringing about the change that they are looking for, because they always mention all their tactics ahead of time, so that the incumbent doesn't even need to do a lot of intelligence to understand what's happening in the opposing camp. Is that a challenge? Do you think that's a valid for
Yeah, I think it's true. It's true because in most cases, before even the opposition unleashes, they already countermeasures for whatever the opposition is going to unleash. That means the intelligence always tells them, and it means it's the people within us that are part of the regime. But I think in the NUP camp, they have somehow successfully beaten that because there are certain things we also see, we people who are part, and we just wonder, oh, this has been happening, okay, now this is new, and now like everyone just gets shocked by the steps NUP is taking. So they have tried their best to make sure that all their plans are not there out in the open for the oppressor to know and to counteract them, which is a very good thing, which has not been happening in the past. Most cases, the opposition gives out their plans, the junta knows, so he just counteracts everything that's going to happen. I agree with you, that's true.
What are your thoughts, Mitala, Mr. Mitala?
You see, on the question of on that question, because it's now a question that has gone to court, I've got to be very careful in order not to in order to respect the rules of sub judice, not to discuss a case which is actively, being litigated, in court. As a lawyer, I'm going to be really very careful on that one. But nonetheless, I think we can discuss the peripheral issues, the deep-seated issues around the case, so that we can just be able to understand a few things. For starters, I just want to say that I am one person who has strong belief in institutions and democracy, and I would say that democracy is under threat, but it's not dead. I think we have to keep the faith open. We have to keep that under grasp, to understand and to appreciate that even though there's a very serious, and it's a very severe threat to democracy, and our democracies are severely threatened, but the concept of democracy itself is not dead. And where we are at the moment is this idea of strongman politics, and what are the key characteristics of strongman politics? Because what we are seeing is a strongman in an idea that has now come to pass as Musevenism. We are not talking about Museveni as an individual now. Now we are talking about what he has built, and he has built a system around him, the so-called Musevenism, which is built along the principles of strongman politics. These are the sort of things you see in Russia. They're the sort of things you see in China. They're the sort of things you see in Israel, in Egypt, in quite a number of places, in Turkey, in Thailand, in the Philippines, in Syria. They are all having the same problem, the problem of strongman politics. And these are people, they disregard any kind of political system in place. They cultivate mistrust for institutions.
I think Israel is not part of that group.
I could have got it wrong, but there is a number of nations that
Israel is
they have come to be characterized as
Israel is
strongman nation. They are cultivating fear, tribalism, corruption, impunity, all those sorts of things. I mean, if you look at our Uganda, that is what you see. That's clearly what you see. A military kind of dictatorship dressed up in what we want to refer to as democracy. I'll call it fake democracy, because it's not democracy.
Fake democracy, indeed.
Absolutely, it's fake democracy because it's not democracy. I mean, we have to call it for what it is. Call a spade a spade. We don't have a democracy. We have a dictatorship. There's no question about that. And all the characteristics I've listed there, you have a closer look and tell me if none of them is existent in our Ugandan context. So that's what we.
Apart from Israel, I think you forgot North Korea, but I want to defend Israel and
fair enough.
Democratic
country. But that's
what they do. Of course, there are certain things that they do that need to be questioned. Definitely.
But that's the idea. I've kind of been trying. It's the picture that I'm painting.
Right.
And then you factor in repression. I'll paint a very small picture here again. I grew up I'm a child of the late 70s.
Right.
Which means that by the early mid-1980s, when Museveni was still a rebel, fighting a sitting government and causing a lot of mayhem, among the star people, I was growing up, Now, in a medical world, science has categorically put it at the age of 7 or age 5 when a child is clearly able to remember things that have happened in their early childhood. Now, I remember as a young boy, my parents used to own a very small shop on the outskirts of Machindi Barracks, just below, because I grew up around that area.
Right.
And I remember a time when every time my parents heard that soldiers were coming down, we literally, the whole village had to scamper. People would run, and close up shops. Then there's these green trucks, army trucks that would come picking up people in the so-called panda gari and things of that kind.
Right.
Nobody ever expected that in 2021 we are going to be slipping back into that kind of environment, and it's really disappointing. I must tell you, it's really, really disappointing to see ourselves moving back into an era of such a kind, whereby if Henry, I disappear from you for a few hours in the night, there is every possibility that I've been abducted, and I have been abducted by the state,
That is supposed to protect you. Can you imagine that?
Protect me. So basically, the implication here.
Can you imagine the
by implication, it is simply that the state of Uganda cannot guarantee your safety anymore. I mean, who does remember Mr. Museveni when he said in his early days that he cannot preside over a government where people are disappearing and he doesn't know, or his army chief or his policemen don't know what has happened to those people?
Yeah, said that several times.
Only last week, the Minister of Internal Affairs, and I want to be direct on this, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, JJ Odongo, the Minister of Internal Affairs, was in Parliament, and he was asked a question by the Speaker of Parliament that does the state know the whereabouts of people who have disappeared? And he said categorically, these were his words, that the state does not know the whereabouts or the welfare, was not interested in the welfare of those people who have been reported missing. So by implication, it simply means that the state cannot guarantee your security anymore.
Which means it's ready to go.
And that is a serious indictment for Mr. Museveni. Seriously.
Exactly, yes.
It's a very serious indictment.
They have lost
But I wanted to bring that picture in because some people may be, obviously Mr. Museveni has said that, I heard him criticize Bobby, Mr. Kyagulanyi, saying that Mr. Kyagulanyi says he's very young because he's 38 and, for him, as far as he's concerned, a man of 38 is not a young person. That's fair enough. Maybe that could be correct. But there are lots of people within that age bracket who might not remember or who may not be familiar with the sort of things that we are talking about, where there was once upon a time in our lives where our parents had to run and shut their shops at the sight of the army men.
Right.
And that seems to be back squarely on the streets of Kampala. Now that is something to be worrying. If anybody's not concerned about that, then I don't know what sort of Uganda we are living in. Now, on the very specification, I'll be a bit brief on the very specification of the case that is gone to court. I want to draw very quick similarities there with what happened in 2016. The last time we were there in court in 2016.
Right.
If you look at the petition word by word, issue by issue, most of the things that were said in 2016 have come back. They have come back before. They have come before court, and I think this time around, I want to think that I think this has been said by so many people elsewhere that I think today our judiciary is on test, because the last time around they said that they agreed that there were issues, there were problems with the electoral process, but not sufficient evidence had been presented before them to be able to reach a conclusion that the election had been fraud, had been fundamentally flawed.
Right.
So I hope that this time around, the honorable, justices of the Supreme Court will have a very careful examination of all the things that are being put before them and take into account the electoral process as a process, not as a single event. Because Henry and all you, my colleagues, everybody knows that elections are not just about casting a vote. That's not what it is about. It's a whole process that starts way months before we even think about casting the vote. There are a series of things that happen way before that. Now, if anybody has been following, if anybody has been following the election as it has been from the time the nomination started up to the point of the casting of the vote, you will see that there are serious issues there. You know, the involvement of the army. I mean, if you go back to the Mbabazi Museveni case of 2016, just at the last page before the judges sign off, there are about 4 issues that were identified in that case, and the Supreme Court made it very clear that they were concerned about those issues, and they would wish that action is taken by the state, by the Attorney General, to make sure that those things are resolved before we go back to the recently concluded elections. Even the mere fact that we went into elections without those issues not being fixed made the election problematic in itself. So for me, I think if we are to have faith, and I'm going to have faith, I might be naive, but I'm going to have some faith, and I'm going to say that I hope that the honorable members of the Supreme Court, they will look at the evidence before them very carefully, and they will come really to the defense of the nation. Because where we are at the moment, it looks like all avenues have been sealed off, and the hope of the nation is now held by the court system. If the court system fails us, then that will be the grand failure. That would be my submission on that.
Thank you so much for that passionate, detailed submission. And I think before we proceed, I want to commend you for being, even though Dr. Mirembe, do you want to say something? Dr. Mirembe, do you want to say something? All right. So our colleagues in Kampala are having trouble with the network, but as my colleague has very well discussed this conversation, I think it is important for us to acknowledge that the process must be followed, and that the state of the justices is the judiciary in Uganda is on a test. It's on a litmus paper.
Absolutely.
Who are these justices? Are they really justices of the law? Of course, we cannot predetermine what the judgment should be. We should be willing and patient to look at the evidence that will be provided, examine it, and understand if there is reasonable doubt. And so long as that is evident, we hope that justices will do the right thing.
You know, the Presidential Elections Act, in tandem with the Constitution, Article 4, talks about the will of the people.
Right.
And I think that's really, it's really the gist of the matter. You know, what we have seen today, the 58% or 56%, I even don't know the figure because it's changeable. It keeps on changing. The good thing is that even the president himself has admitted that the Electoral Commission is as bogus as anything. Even last night, I saw his speech last night. He was speaking last night, and he's completely dismissed the entire Electoral Commission. He says it's a bunch of thieves.
Right.
Thankfully, they stole for him. So if they have stolen and they have stolen for him, then that is another piece of evidence that can be relied upon in court during the determination of the current case.
But I think Dr. Bessie has been mentioning the notion, has been alluding to the notion that the Electoral Commission cannot be trusted because what they are doing is fraud.
I'll take the president's word on that. He said it last night. He said it himself that the commission is a bunch of thieves.
All right. Which means we can't even use the statistics they have provided to make a better assessment of how people actually think.
But when we talk about
the official numbers,
a free and fair election, really, where the will of the people. Can anybody really in their sober mind say that the Ugandans have exercised their free will to elect a president?
Good question.
After seeing what we have seen,
why don't we find out what?
It's a rhetoric question. I'm not going to answer the question, but I want to leave it there. Rhetoric question.
Dr. Mirembe, what do you think?
Yes, please.
Can you say something, please?
Yes, I can now hear you very well. So, sorry about the continuous power interruptions, but I have been following in parts your discussion, but I wanted to just say that now we want to talk about post-election. The first question I want to ask us, maybe to think, did we in reality have an election? When you check for us who are in the field, what exactly happened? Was not an election, it was some ritual that actually happened where people had to go try to be like they are in lines. But when literally the winners almost
we are missing a big part of your conversation. We are missing a big part of your conversation. We are not.
Let himself, he gave himself 100%. He's over that.
Yeah, so we are missing. We don't hear a lot about Dr. Judith, what are your thoughts?
My network was off, so I didn't hear the question.
Oh, okay, awesome. So we're just talking about. So you heard what Mr. Mirembe said, Dr. Mirembe said. He called it
Not at all.
Yeah, so Dr. Mirembe says that we did not have an election. What happened was just a ritual where people have this illusion that they are going to the polls to actually elect their president. Something that, according to Dr. Mirembe, is a ritual and false indication. Mr. Mirembe, I'm just asking, reiterating what you have said.
The election before it.
I want to give her a chance to say something as well. So he thinks that we shouldn't be talking about what next before we understand what transpired.
I agree.
And in his submission, he says that there's no legitimacy for us. We have no legitimacy to start speaking about what we are going to do post-elections because there were no elections. Do you have the same process?
Like he said, I think this was a selection, not an election. Right. But what for me, it's not about basically understanding what took place because we already know what took place. Actually, we went into the election knowing what is going to happen. So it was upon us to get a solution to what we knew was going to happen. And that solution, we've either not yet gotten it or some organized people have gotten it, but we have not yet implemented it. That is where we are. Right now is what next? What should we do? Is the organized people or some organized people are thinking of what next, and they have not yet maybe publicized it or something, or we are all in the process of thinking what should we do because we know what happened. We knew people voted for Kyagulanyi overwhelmingly, and we know his victory was stolen. So should we accept like the years that have passed by, let's wait for 2026? No, Because if we wait for 2026, it's the same cycle that is going to happen. So we should prepare, we should do something now, because if we don't do now, it will never happen. We shall keep postponing every other 5 years, every other 5 years, and soon we shall not be a youth anymore. Other people will be on. So I think it's time for us to act now.
Right. So it's very interesting that you pointed out the now. What now? Or now what? Question. What should we do now? I think we have missed a lot of opportunities. I remember during Toji Kwatako, many people said that we cannot let the constitution be changed or defiled now. We cannot let these changes happen, because when they happen, we know what is going to come next. Unfortunately, even when the MPs try to put up a fight to defend the constitution, the masses did not follow through. The masses saw the SFC taking over parliament. They saw the fights on the television networks, the different television networks. This went viral throughout throughout the world. Everyone was talking about what happened in Uganda. Televisions in the US and Canada were all pinned to the Ugandan parliament and what was transpiring. But when the vote came in and they changed it, the masses still stayed at home and only thought about going about their days. So when we talk about we need to do something now, what exactly do we have in mind? When we have had different occasions, ripe occasions to do something and did nothing. I think we have been feeding Mr. Museveni over the years that you can get away with doing all the stupidity and you're not going to do anything about it. According to Honorable Semujunganda, the SFC is an illegal group. Yet the SFC has taken over the security of the company, of Uganda, actually. Or perhaps he calls it a company. It's probably Uganda Cooperative, Uganda Limited for Mr. Museveni. Because the SFC has taken over the security. But Mr. Nganda says that the SFC is not even talked about within the constitution of Uganda. So for those of you who do not know what the SFC means, it means Special Forces Command, which is in charge of the presidential protection in Uganda. But this is an entity that is not talked about in the constitution of Uganda, which means it's not yet legally recognized as one of the arms that Uganda operates. Mr. Mitchell, do you have any thoughts?
You know, I think to understand the dilemma that we have, you really need to understand the character of Mr. Museveni himself as an individual. You know, this is a person who is extremely arrogant. You know, he believes that there's nobody else who's got what it takes to be head of state other than himself. He doesn't believe in negotiation. He doesn't respect, you know, other people's views and ideas. And you've heard him speak, you know, categorically when he's dismissed even the option of negotiating, when he's been given the idea of mediating between him and those who oppose him, he has completely turned it down, you know. And you know, he's quick to call other people names at all opportunity, and he's just one person that you cannot really trust. I mean, if you look at our political journey through the through pre-independence, you know, struggles and post-independence Uganda, you know, 1972 and so on and so forth. You can clearly see that there's only one name that is constant within the entire, you know, political process of our nation. There's just one name that's constant. It looks like all other names are falling away and just one name remains constant, and that's the name of Mr. Yoweri Museveni. You know, From I think he comes on the scene, if I'm not mistaken, he comes on the scene around 1962, 19 something there, when Milton Obote, I think, introduced him as a state operative in State House. And from there on, we seem to start getting a problem from that point on, because from the very onset, his idea has been him on top and nothing else.
Nothing else. So, yeah, that's true. But he told us, I think he said it recently, that he started his revolution in 1960s. In the 1960s.
Yeah, I mean, even by his own admission, that's what he says. But the picture I'm trying to paint is that we need to understand the sort of person that we are dealing with. Because if you're dealing with somebody who is not genuine, I mean, you cannot go to negotiate with somebody who doesn't sincerely believe in negotiating. Because what benefit is it going to be? If I sit on the table with you, but I am not sincere about negotiation,
right?
What is the point of that discussion?
There's no point. There's no.
It happened. The last time it happened was 1986 during the Nairobi peace talks.
Right.
When Museveni went to negotiate with the Lutwa government, and you know what happened there? As he was walking away, shaking their hands, agreeing that they had agreed a ceasefire, he was directing his commanders to march on to Kampala.
Right.
So clearly we have a problem of trust here. We have a serious problem of trust, and how are we going to deal with that is a question that I don't have an answer to at the very.
Those are questions
but there is something that is happening. Power is very intoxicating. When you have power, it's very easy for you to start to believe that you are the alpha and you are the omega, you are the start and you are the end. So I think this is what Mr. Museveni and his people have come to believe, that Ugandans should exist on their benevolence, on their kindness. So if they are not so kind to us something, then it cannot happen. But there is an important element that has come into play now. It's the issue of legitimacy. Because perhaps everybody has known that in the past, these elections have been held and it's been, life as normal, business as usual. Life goes on. We settle, we wait for the next elections. I think on this occasion, there is a clear question of legitimacy hanging around the establishment. How can they really rehabilitate their image around? Perhaps they don't care. It's possible that they don't care.
That's another question. Do you think
it's possible that they don't care? But I think the issue of legitimacy is really critical. In terms of what we can do, we have to continue what we are doing. We have to continue talking. Your talking and raising the issues does not depend on the state allowing you to say that, because it's your right to say what you believe is how you want to see your country being governed. You see, I've been here before, Henry, and I've talked about this issue, and I've said the problem we are having is an issue of governance. If we don't sort out the issue of governance, we are going to be on that roundabout for several years to come. Perhaps what might happen, what might be helpful for us to begin thinking about is perhaps redoing our constitution, because it does appear at the moment that the constitution does not work. Because it does not work in the sense that Mr. Museveni and his people are able to circumvent the constitution and its provisions and do anything else outside the constitution, but for somehow they kind of still remain. They remain around, and people don't seem to find that problematic. Then if we have a constitution that's not working, perhaps it's time now to revisit that constitution and really try to find alternatives around, changing things like the distribution of power, distribution of the national cake, curtailing the power of the president, which is very crucial. I think the president has got too many powers, too much power in his hands. And that's where partly that's where the problem is coming from. So all these things can now come back on the table. Nothing is off the table. Everything that can be done legitimately and lawfully, I support it, and it should be done.
So you sound like you have studied Mr. Museveni very well, but you at the same moment you also ironically trust him a lot.
I don't trust Mr. Museveni.
Let me make my case. Let me make my case. Let me make my case.
Let me make a confession first before you
Let
do
me
that.
make my case. Let me make my case first. You say that this guy cannot be trusted.
No.
But you are suggesting that we go through the same processes that he has created, system has created, to evaluate if we can actually trust him. So you are telling us that we should take the legal means, which means going to the legislature.
I'm being careful.
Let me make my case. So going to the legislature and changing the constitution using parliamentary means. But you are forgetting that there's a graphic that is circulating all over social media right now that shows that MPs have been unequitably distributed regionally, giving the Western region almost 270 delegates or MPs, as opposed to the rest of the country, which has 256.
I've seen the breakup. I've seen the breakup now.
So when you suggest that we go through the legislature and trying to redraw the map or trying to revise the terms of reference, which parliamentary legislature or which legislature are you referring us to? The same that has been unequitably formed. So that's why I'm saying that it's ironic. You say
it's a fair point, Henry. I'm trying to be careful here because I know the difficulties that people on the ground are going through.
Right.
And I don't want to say anything here that can be interpreted as saying anything that makes those people's lives more unbearable than what it is at the moment. I know for a fact. I speak to people there, People are careful. People are very careful. Even people you consider to be close friends, they are careful in their talk. Because they know so we don't want to put our people into any sort of trouble. But the question of what we do next, I don't have an answer to that.
Of course, no one has
an answer to that. I think it concerns every Ugandan.
So why don't we interrogate the issue? Why don't we interrogate the issue of international relations? There has been a lot of light shed on Uganda's post-elections, election process and post-elections events that are happening right now. Do you think there's, first, if you think it's admirable for the international community to intervene, is it in our best interest that they do? Is it admirable? Should we embrace it? Should we give them space to engage in our conversation? Are we going to be compromising our sovereignty when we give the international community an opportunity to engage in a sovereign country's affairs?
I've talked about the issue of legitimacy before, and perhaps that's what I was, trying to put into context here. And I'm one of those people from the school of thought who believe that, international engagement with international partners is really crucial and it is important, Otherwise, we stand to be isolated. There is no country that is an island anymore. There is no person who is an island who can do it all by themselves. So by engaging with the international partners, obviously there is lots of benefits to come from that. There is lots of useful guidance that we can pick from what has happened elsewhere. And I'm sure that these discussions are already underway. I'm pretty sure that these discussions are going on. And there has been a change in international dynamics as well, because obviously people really don't want to hear this, but it's a statement of fact. There has been a a change in United States. The president who was there, President Trump, was not interested in African affairs. And in any case, he was a blessing in disguise to dictators, because by keeping his eyes off the ball to the injustices and democratic deficiencies that were taking place across the continent, it kind of gave dictators across the continent a leeway, to do what they do without anybody, paying attention to what they are doing. I do not think that it can continue to be business as usual with Joe Biden in the office. And he has been very clear and specific, and he has stated on record that he's not going to, give, dictators and people who abuse human rights and all those injustices.
Right.
So
do you think there is hope? Do you think Biden is
I have hope? We can engage them, and I've said this before. I've said to some of my colleagues as we have told them that maybe you need to engage your representatives, at parliamentary level, so that the voices can become very clear. Because what it turns out to is that the government cannot afford to be isolated. They don't want it. They would rather they are not isolated in the way they see things are going, and that alone can be it can be a mitigation. In every small ways it can, but it can be a mitigation. It can be a helpful venture, and it's got nothing to do with eroding, sovereignty, because, and I don't even see where that comes into play, really. I always hear this thing being thrown about. We've had this statement being thrown around so many times during the course of the election, where even the president himself has stated that there is a foreign country that is making attempts to destabilize Uganda. The only problem is that he's come short of naming what that foreign country is. It would be very helpful if he had stated on record what that country is, so that people can be able to make an assessment. But by throwing about these, unfounded allegations that cannot be supported in any form or shape, I think it's just really unfortunate. But yes, I do believe by engaging with the international partners, I support the petition that have been sent to the International Criminal Court, to indict people who have engaged in human rights abuses against Ugandans. And of course, exposing the wrongs that they do. Exposing the wrongs they do is also something that could be taken as an approach, because obviously by putting them in the spotlight, it kind of it helps to check the excesses that they are thinking about, doing. So that would be my response to that.
And that's, I think, a fair response. By all means, of course. But what do you say to people who think that international actors shouldn't be engaged in African affairs because it's just an extension of neo-colonialism, and it is something that we should be skeptical about?
It's the double standards that I detest, when it comes to things like that. Because obviously, when the government wants money from the international players, from the donor agencies, problem there. Because obviously, when they approach, all these foreign entities to borrow money, of course, which is problematic in its own sense, because borrowing the money is not a problem, but the way in which the money is being misused is another issue there. But when the government approaches those entities for financial assistance, and even assistance in any other areas, isn't that not intervention? Is that not classified as interference in our internal affairs?
That's true.
Does it only become a problem when voices that are not satisfied with the status quo as it is try to engage with the international partners to try to find an amicable solutions to our problems? Is that when it becomes an undignified way of engagement? I think it's nonsense, and it should be taken for the content it deserves, really.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been missing comments on Facebook. There's a couple of comments on Facebook. There's one of my colleagues, Brad Northcote, is my colleague here. He says that so there's I'm just going direct on Facebook because I missed it on on the tool that we are using. For some reason, the comments weren't coming out, and I hadn't seen all these comments. There's a couple of them. Trying to see if I can read out something. So Brad says that I had a similar question. What do you believe the role should be, if any, for foreign media in applying pressure on Museveni? Would that have any tangible impact, or would it simply be, at best, dismissed as foreigners grandstanding, or at worst exploited as evidence of foreign interference? So it's pretty much the same conversation that we are having. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
I think, as I said already before, I'm one of those people with a clear school of thought that thinks that, we can tackle our problems from different perspectives, from different directions. The local approach is a welcome approach, but the engagement with the international community cannot be dismissed, because we are not self-sufficient. We don't self-sustain ourselves.
Right.
Our budget is always looking to somebody else to fund. They tell us about oil and this and this and this and that. It's never come to anything tangible, really. Otherwise, if it had really amounted to something that is tangible, you would see the obvious results in terms of reducing poverty, in terms of reducing unequalness within the distribution of resources amongst ourselves, and so on and so forth. But because we still go back to them for help, then it is kind of nonsensical for somebody to say that, we don't need them anymore. I believe we need them, and we should continue to engage with them.
I think we do need international engagement, specifically from people who pay the taxes in the West. Canadians, for example, pay a lot of taxes that ends up going to Uganda as part of donations. I'm pretty sure in the UK it's the same thing. The taxes you pay end up becoming aid to Ugandans. Same in the US and so many other countries. The question is, do you think the international community is interested in the people of Uganda, or are they interested in someone who can sustain their interests? Because I think that's also a legitimate question. Whose interest should be put at the fore when they go to that discussion?
That's a very complicated question, Henry, that I would rather not go into the complexities of at this moment in time. I think it really requires a bit of a detailed analysis of exactly what sort of question are we answering, what do we intend to achieve, what is our objective,
right.
Issue, I think, we need to dedicate that debate to a different session. But I would be naive to sit here and say that there is any country that would be happy seeing that its sovereignty is under threat, because the issue of sovereignty is critically important. And I think it would be very unjustified, if not unfair, for the international community to impose any conditions that erode our sovereignty as a nation. But having said that, by placing before us benchmarks which enable us to be better in terms of our democratic practices, in terms of how services and goods are delivered, in terms of respect for human rights, which are global international phenomena, I think from that point, from that approach, the international community, they are our most, important partners.
Exactly.
In enforcing those particular issues. By enabling, I'll give you an example, and I think it's something you've been following yourself. There is this democratic governance fund which has been suspended by the government. Only because now when we go into things like that, now we are seeing how the impact of our engagement with international partners could be, the impact it could have on our local on our local economy, on the productivity, on our industrialization, and so on and so forth. Even in terms of the defense mechanism, because the government of Uganda, say it as be, doesn't have the money to be able to sustain all those, services by itself. And this is why it's always going back, to somebody else to request for help,
Right.
So
Right.
whoever is giving us that money, whether they are giving it to the government, whether they are giving it to the civil society organizations to be able to enable people to lift them out of poverty, to increase, civil awareness, to increase, to sensitize people about what they are entitled to, and those sorts of areas. I don't interpret that as an erodment of our sovereignty as a nation. I don't think that's what it is. But obviously, the propagandists are always going to try to sweep it in that direction. And I think it's a very misconceived kind of argument if somebody tries to drive it from such a perspective.
Right. So I think this is very interesting. We have about 3 minutes to wrap up this conversation. I think it has been an incredibly informative conversation. I hope to have many, many, many more of these kinds. I am very appreciative of the comrades that joined us from Kampala, Judith Nalukwago, who has dropped off, and Dr. Mirembe Joel, who has also dropped off due to the internet and due to the restrictions to social media, of course.
It's a shame.
It is a shame that we are turning into Turkey, because I remember Turkey, they banned university education. There's some institutions that were banned completely. But I hope as we engage in these discussions, we are learning not just from each other, but also from other corners of the world, to understand the different aspects of governance, and also to think very critically about which leaders we should be bringing into our midst.
I'm very excited at all the new people who have been elected into various offices on whatever platform, as long as they are new faces, new kids on the block. That's new blood. I think it is a positive development. The only challenge that we are going to have is to make sure that those people stay focused, because we know what is at stake. And
indeed,
many times.
Very important. I think it's very important for people to know that even when you come in as a new leader, you need to understand or to appreciate that once the power corrupts you, you are likely to become the very person that you have been dismissing. So we hope, we pray that all the leaders that came in who are new do not become the leaders that they replaced.
Let them not become complacent, because money is on display. They are going to be tempted in every way, but they should remain focused and know that the people have trusted them. And because the people have trusted them, they should always carry the people's wishes and interests as they go forward. Let us stop looking at an individual, and let's look at Uganda as a whole, as a country. If we don't put ourselves first and put others before us, I believe we can be a far better nation.
I think we can be a far better nation. Final thoughts before I close, because I think it's time to close now. Any final thoughts? Did we interrogate the state of the nation appropriately? Do we need to?
I think the question has been posed for anybody who is watching, whether locally or internationally or wherever you are from. If somebody looks at the state of Uganda as it is today, what would they say? Would they be happy with what they are seeing, or would they not be happy with what they are not seeing? It's always an issue of perspective. It's always an issue of perspective. Really depends on where you are. For colleagues who are part and parcel of the system of the establishment, they don't see a problem with it. Or maybe if they do, they are terrified at what they are seeing and they have decided to keep quiet, because silence can be an inference for so many things. For colleagues and friends who are looking at things from the other side, we think that they are very deep-sitting problems. And our prayer, and we are crying out for those who are in charge of the nation, not their problems notwithstanding, that they should have a second thought. They should examine their consciences and see if see and establish whether they have delivered us to the promised land that they promised us to deliver us at. Because if we are seeing exactly the problems that we thought we had done away with, and those problems have kind of reincarnated themselves into new challenges, the sorts of things I was referring to earlier, the kidnappings, the repression, the shutting down of the internet, the economic, disparity between regions, the abject poverty within which our people are living, unemployment, young people, basically hopelessness. That is something to be worried about. If I was in the shoes of Mr. Museveni, I would stop being angry and I would listen more and I would engage more with even those who are my challengers, because they are not doing it as a disservice to the country, but they are doing it because they are also interested in seeing us go into a different and possibly better direction. That would be my observation for tonight, really. There is need for self-re-examination other than, the chest thumping. The chest thumping is not taking us anywhere. I would finally say that any system that exercises blunt repression of its people is counterproductive. Therefore, those people should know that, the things that they are doing to, fellow citizens, they are counterproductive. They are not going to deliver a peaceful Uganda.
And that, my friends, is the State of the Union, the State of the Nation, State of the Union. Interesting that I'm talking about State of the Union. But I want to appreciate each and every one of you who has been watching us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much for following us. Uganda, the State of the Nation. It has been a conversation. It has been a pleasure having a conversation with my colleagues in the UK and Uganda alike. I want to thank each and every one of you who has been following us. Thank you for the comments. I hope thank you for the shares as well. I hope you will be inclined to come back next Sunday for another State of the Union as we continue to interrogate the post-elections, the post-Uganda elections, and trying to figure out where we are going next. My name is Henry Sally, and I am privileged to serve the Ugandan community. Thank you so much for following, and have a great Sunday.
My pleasure.